The decipherment of the Rosetta Stone could be regarded as a lucky break for Egyptology on the one hand, and impressive scholarly work by Jean-François Champollion on the other. Yet ultimately, the decipherment became a means to conceal the real Egypt, which, as it turns out, was far more advanced and far more mysterious than previously believed. The ancient Egyptians hid their advanced knowledge in visual symbolism, metaphorical gods, and encoded narratives, all of which was outside the scope of the Rosetta Stone. You were told that the stone's translation was what had cracked the code for the hieroglyphs, and it did. It allowed Egyptologists to finally understand so much more about ancient Egypt than they had before. But what if the Egyptians had recorded their knowledge using more than just one code? What if there was much more to Egypt's incredible civilization than meets the eye in the decipherment of the Rosetta Stone? Come with me as the video challenges the limits of the Rosetta Stone as the be-all and end-all document for decoding all things ancient Egypt. And you'll see that what is revealed is a deeper hidden language encoded in ancient Egypt's gods, glyphs, and paintings. This is more than just about ancient Egypt's history, because it's a very important part of why the story of the snake has remained hidden. And the snake's story concerns the whole planet and all of humanity. The stone's gift was the fact that it was inscribed with the text of the same proclamation in Greek, Demotic, and Hieroglyph. Its translation was a very big deal. Unfortunately, there was a twist. Champollion's translation was the foundation that subsequent scholars built on. The template that he began, and which later evolved over time, became a trap. Why? Because it locked generations of scholars into thinking that hieroglyphs were just about words, punctuations, and surface-level meaning. The translation completely missed an important layer of how the hieroglyphs had evolved, because concealed under the Demotic script and the hieroglyphs themselves was a mountain of ancient Egypt's priestly propaganda. This is where the storehouse of knowledge that was originally encoded in the images and symbols of the gods lay. And it is a storehouse that the Rosetta Stone does not and cannot unlock. Thanks to the Rosetta Stone, Egyptology exploded. Suddenly, at the time, Egyptologists could read everything, or so it was thought. But over time, this laser focus on deciphering hieroglyphs actually narrowed our modern understanding, and it made scholars dismiss other important forms of communication that the ancient Egyptians had used, such as the metaphoric imagery of the gods, their deeply intertwined relationships, the symbolism they embodied, and the carefully crafted identities of each god. Now, since the Rosetta Stone couldn't decode these supposedly mythological gods, Egyptologists and other scholars stuck to the mythology explanation. In reality, within these Egyptian deities is a wealth of information hiding in plain sight. Here's what most people don't realize. There are two types of stories in ancient Egypt: the public mythology that was told to maintain power and religion, and then there was the much more serious knowledge, which could be described as a combination of scientific and esoteric knowledge rolled into one, that was held in secret by the temple priests and those they chose to share it with. The Rosetta Stone, it only translated the surface stuff. It didn't touch the priestly knowledge, and it absolutely didn't help with decoding the template used to build deities like Ra, Apophis, Set, and other gods. The priests created two faster, easier to write cursive scripts in Egypt's history. First came hieratic script, and then centuries later they created demotic, and that is a script that is on the Rosetta Stone itself. The creation of these two scripts is where things started getting lost in translation, literally. Imagine for a moment, if humans today decided to turn our emojis or street signs, corporate logos, whatever, and any other visual pictograms or ideograms that you can think of, into a new alphabet. I'm sure that you can see the potential problem of losing the original meanings. And that's essentially what happened to the original hieroglyph meaning when they were transformed into an alphabet and into a cursive written language. Complex ideograms that once conveyed layered meaning got boiled down into phonetic shorthand. And that's where the limitation of the Rosetta Stone begins, because the secret meanings never made it into the new scripts. They stayed locked in the temple walls, outside the reach of the stone. And let's not forget that the text that is on the Rosetta Stone itself was propaganda. It was commissioned during the rebellion against Egypt's Greek overlords. It was designed by temple priests to flatter Ptolemy V, and it praised his divine right to rule and reinforced his cult. And the reason why it was written in three scripts was because by the time of the Greek rule, hieroglyphs were mostly ceremonial, that only the priests could understand and those who were scribes write. So it was understood by a shrinking class of Egyptians. And also important, the average Egyptian wouldn't have been able to read the hieroglyphs at any stage in Egypt's history. They weren't taught how to do so. Ancient Egypt's Greek rulers and overlords, on the other hand, had apparently made little to no effort to learn how to decipher the hieroglyphs themselves. There's even some reporting that Greek elites thought that the half-human, half-animal Egyptian gods were uncivilized. And this is important, because what it means is that where the hieroglyphs, as well as both cursive writing scripts were concerned, the temple priests always had full control about the meanings that were assigned to each script. So, might it be naive to assume that the priests gave up all their power and knowledge and revealed all of their secrets to the Greek rulers? The Rosetta Stone was in fact simply a power play, a cultural band-aid. It was never intended to be some sort of cosmic revelation about the Egyptian language or a key to decode the hieroglyph. So where is the real knowledge? As I've said before, it begins with the gods, in their animal forms, in their relationships, and in how they were constructed. That is what the real code reveals. And while it is a very simple code and a very straightforward one, it can only be used to interpret a hidden meaning by first understanding that there was a specific template that was used to build the gods and the rest of the original hieroglyph meanings. And that template differs from the later changes over the centuries up to Greek rule. Once you know that, suddenly everything from Apophis, the giant snake, to the Uraeus or Horus and Set starts to make sense. And not only do they make sense, it quickly becomes crystal clear that they were telling the same related story. That story is where you'll find the shocking and unexpected details of ancient Egypt's story of the snake. Champollion's work was brilliant. However, it was just one small piece of the puzzle. The central, much larger and much more important puzzle piece, around which all of the other pieces fall into place, is the original and secret template of the deities and the hieroglyphs. We've spent 2 centuries obsessing over how to contort what was gleaned from the Rosetta Stone's translation to make it fit every Egyptian hieroglyph text, and in the process, usually getting only the most banal and simplistic explanations for our efforts. So here's something to think about. What else might Egyptologists have missed by their dependence on the Rosetta Stone's decipherment? And how much longer are we going to let one stone define what we know about a civilization that built timeless monuments, encoded astronomical data, and warned us about cataclysmic changes, all in metaphor? Each video about ancient Egypt's story of the snake explains the gods that are a part of the story. And so with each explanation, the template and how it worked is reinforced so that you can see it clearly for yourself. By breaking down the creation of these gods, they can finally be seen and understood in a way that we've never been able to see them before. Now, if this video made you question the standard narrative, leave your comments and questions below. Let's keep decoding the secrets of ancient Egypt together. Subscribe to be notified when each new video is uploaded. Thanks for watching.